All right, good morning again, everyone. That minute is up. We are ready to get started. This morning, beautiful April morning, running out the clock in April here, about to start May. I am joined by Russ and Brian, both of Haylius Consulting, and we are going to talk about navigating the Cybersecurity Maturity Model Certification 2, more commonly known as CMMC. Before we get started, figured just do a little recap of the agenda. We are going to talk a little bit about just the Winslow Technology Group. I'll tell you a little bit about cybersecurity here, how we go to market, and the different high-level solutions that we have available to y'all. I'm going to introduce Russ and Brian again from Haylius Consulting. They're going to break down CMMC 2. Provide different insights to talk about how your organization can become compliant, stay competitive, and why CMMC matters, and things like pre-assessments and assessments and things of that nature. We'll save a little bit of time at the end for Q&A. Just a little bit about the Winslow Technology Group. So we are headquartered in beautiful Waltham, Massachusetts, right outside of equally beautiful Boston, Massachusetts. We have offices in New York City, Charlotte, and Washington, D.C. We support all different shapes and sizes of customers, from the desktop to the data center to the cloud. So whether it's compute, storage, hyperconverged, data backup protection, end user compute, cybersecurity, networking, public, private, hybrid cloud, and then a whole slew of cybersecurity products and services, including pen testing, consulting services, what we're going to talk about today, and co-managed support to help keep everything updated, patched and running well, and whatnot. We like to identify not just game-changing technologies, but game-changing partners that really provide an unparalleled experience overall and really deliver high values of customer satisfaction. And I would say that Brian and Russ over at Haylius exemplify that, and we're really proud of our partnership with them, and they just do awesome work. At the Winslow Technology Group, we try to make IT personal, so we really try to enable businesses to realize the full potential of their technology, and we do that through a solid passion of delivering really fantastic IT solutions and outcomes that provide exceptional value. So we combine our passion, expertise to really deliver those exceptional outcomes, and whether it's customers, employees, our partners, community, or investors, we treat everyone with the same white glove experience that old customers and hopefully new get to know of the Winslow Technology Group and Haylius Consulting as well. At WTG, we use the NIST Cybersecurity Framework course. This is a different framework than the CMMC, but the NIST CSF broadly applies to pretty much any organization. Has a really great structure to it, and we use this to basically inform our products and services, really helping our customers develop robust defense in-depth solutions, that of course cover identifying risks in environment, protect, so protective technology, detect, so detecting cybersecurity events, responding, so responding to what you've detected, whether it's incident response or overall detection and response capability, recovery in terms of backup and data protection, and governance in terms of policy, procedure, GRC, and much of what we're talking about today, in fact, in terms of compliance with CMMC 2.0. So with that, I am going to introduce Brian and Russ from Haylius. I don't know, Brian and Russ, if you want to introduce yourselves, and then take away the show as it were on CMMC and assessment work.
Yeah, thank you, Matt. We appreciate this opportunity to partner yet again with Winslow Technology Group on another webinar, long-term partnership, and we're happy to be here today. I'm Russ. I am a 34-year veteran of the IT industry, worked in financial services and construction, healthcare, and other technology stack industries. I'm a CAB member on many CABs, but I'm proud to say I'm also the Winslow Technology CAB president, and really excited to partner with this organization. Worked with them for over 20 years now. So prior to that, I've started Haylius 12 years. Prior to that, I was a CIO, a multi-billion-dollar construction company, and excited about what the history and the background that I have can bring to the table to help your organizations. Turn it over to Brian.
Thanks, Russ. Thank you, Matt. I'm Brian LeConte. I'm a senior consultant with Haylius. I've been with Haylius for about a year. I've been in multiple industries, including 19 years of construction, biotech manufacturing, and retail. I've done everything from your network operations to solutions delivery and managing your help desks and support desks. I'm really excited to work on this adventure with Winslow and see what we can do.
Wonderful. Thank you, Brian. So as a quick agenda, we're going to do overview of CMMC. We're going to talk about our pre-assessment services and the C3PAO assessments, the difference between. We have a problem statement around policy to practice that we want to discuss. And there's a slide on bridging the gaps, documentation versus practices. Kind of roll into a mindset and methodology, and then we'll do a quick Q&A and wrap up some questions that you might have. So with that said, I'll roll right into it, and Brian, it's off to you.
Thanks, Russ. So here we are talking about what is CMMC, right? So Cybersecurity Maturity Model Certification. It was developed by the Department of Defense back in 2017, and it ensures companies that are working with their sensitive data, FCI, CUI, or CTI, are protected by strong cybersecurity practices. So CMMC is directly based on the NIST framework, which Matt alluded to earlier. There's a version 3 out now that has 97 security controls that are grouped into 17 different families. An example of one of those controls is password management. So organizations generally have a policy for defining what is their password management practice. However, NIST is really looking for the documentation and verification that your policy is in place as defined. What are the different levels of CMMC? Well, level 1 is a basic cyber hygiene requiring a self-attestation. Companies that aren't even looking to be CMMC certified can use this level 1 framework to really get a good cyber practice in place. Level 2 requires a formal audit with an RPO and a C3PAO practitioner. And then level 3, which really focuses on CTI, which is controlled technical information, kind of think fighter jet plans. They have to go through 2 different assessments. Again, as I said earlier, this is not new and really kind of based on some things back before 2017, like think of WikiLeaks. Government data was exposed and they didn't have a way to control it. Organizations that need to comply are those that are in the supply defense chain, service providers like cloud providers or service managed providers. They could store or send FCI, CUI, or CTI. Subcontractors as well that are in a flow down model from the prime contractors have to be able to be defensible in that space. Now, bridging the gaps, Russ will cover that in the next topic.
Thanks, Brian. So documentation does not always equal practice. So what we're talking about today as the primary disconnect is that executive and IT leaders are sometimes, not always, but misled to believe that policy equals control. And this is a disconnect that isn't just between executives and IT leaders. And in many cases, IT leaders may also lean too heavily on simply having written policies as kind of a crutch. So what we want to talk about now is kind of looking into the practical advice of preparing for a CMMC assessment or audit and looking specifically at the documentation versus practice challenge, or the policy versus control challenge. So what you'll really need is to make sure that there is evidence of operational controls. These are written policies, but then it's more of the evidence that you have to demonstrate that it's just not a policy that's going to suffice. That is going to suffice for you. It has to be evidenced. Assessors typically look for repeatable processes. This is your proof of execution. We are often asked for examples or that evidence I mentioned, which could include things like an audit log, document, or user behavior patterns, system settings, those types of things. We also will need to deliver, as part of the CMMC assessment, procedural documentation that actually shows that we can demonstrate a task and a control ownership. They're going to look for this because it's important to see that your procedures line up with your policies. Those are policies equal controls. By providing access to give these assessment auditors access to your environment, you may need to give read-only or supervised access to the system. Sometimes they want to physically see it demonstrated. Access to your ticketing system, pull up a few tickets, get into your SIM. Should demonstrate how you're recording logging events and how you're handling all that. Into your asset management system, see how your controls are working. These are real-time, provable, evidenced ways of looking at your policies to process. Sometimes it's good to bring in a third party, and we'll talk a little bit more about this in a moment, but bring in a third party to help you with a mock assessment or a pre-audit or a pre-assessment. This allows you to kind of run through the basics of things in a test environment, a controlled safe space, prior to the real thing, meaning your actual certification. So while final assessment scoring or auditing outcomes is completely up to the certified assessors, our goal is to help you demonstrate what you say you do can be proven and repeatable. So we come into this equation as like technical advisors. We can serve in a multitude of different roles. We could be a translator between policy and practice, helping you ensure what's on paper is what's real life. We can take a coach mindset, focus on the outcomes, closing gaps, helping prepare for the CMMC assessment. We could be your navigator, a pre-assessment navigator, because the best time to fix a gap is before the audit, not during. And we can also assist you with the testing of the controls, meaning looking at the documentation as a baseline, right? But knowing that execution results in a passing score. So the goal of pre-assessment is to prepare you to walk in to the C3PAO assessment confidently, not scrambling. And many organizations write great policies, but don't follow them consistently. So now Brian's going to talk a little bit more on this topic as a deep dive.
Thanks, Russ. We're going to talk about the false pretense of written policies. Some organizations fall victim to this pretense by thinking they have a broad written policy and they're covered. Often these broad sweeping policies do not smoothly translate into configurations that are consistently verified against the policy. Circling back to the NIST 800-171 framework conversation earlier, it has a defined, necessary guided element the organization needs to demonstrate beyond policy with hard evidence, such as annual cyber training of staff, configuration settings for systems, network diagrams, and vulnerability scan outputs. Audits of logs also are important to know where CUI is stored. Defined ownership beyond the CISO or CIO is critical. Just because that individual is signing off on a well-written policy, it is important to not blindly trust the entire IT staff or security staff are enforcing that policy. While implementing the NIST controls, roles such as system owner and control provider are created. Those groups will work in tandem to assess, document, and enforce each of those 97 controls. A real benefit to the entire process is understanding that some systems will have limitations to adhere to the current policy. Policies can be updated to reflect such findings. A risk register can be built to track those findings, and if the risk is beyond the organizational appetite, a POAM can be created, which is a plan of action and milestones, to deal with the items that struggle to be in compliance. There are many inherent risks to not being able to action or realize policies into true practice. Beyond CMMC, other audits could fail. Cyber insurance requirements grow exponentially every year. Having a strong documentation library on how your policies are in action will greatly simplify a renewal. Should your organization find itself in a security incident, the inability to see where your policy failed could cause longer downtime, or finding the root cause could be difficult. All this radiates a false sense of protection. Last, there could be long-term damages from the lack of implementation of these practices, and they could be devastating. Losing a contractor being unable to bid DoD work can yield loss of reputation in your industry. All these challenges and risks lead to why a pre-assessment process is so important, and Russ will take you through that next.
Yeah, thank you, Brian. I think a lot of times when we look at CMMC, it's a new certification that companies are planning and working to go through, and they don't often understand some of the constraints that are could potentially be placed around them from the prime subcontractors, the prime contractors, the clients and above working with the DoD. And there are a lot of scenarios where if you're not compliant, you might not even be available to bid that work, as Brian mentioned. So in prepping for that, there's a lot of layers to CMMC that we won't cover in detail here today, but it's important to understand there are really two components that we want to present here today. There's the pre-assessment, and then there's a formal assessment from a C3PAO. The pre-assessment can be done internally, it can be done by a third party. It is an informal practice. It's that cybersecurity model certification assessment, and there's some guidelines to it. But the purpose is really about identifying gaps in compliance with your practices that the assessors are going to look at. So we help you look at identifying the gaps. We will help you look at preparing the organization for the formal assessment, and we'll also help you reduce the risk of failing an assessment. Brian mentioned a few of those risks in the previous slide. So who can perform it, the pre-assessment? It can be done by, you can do it internally. You could do it as using an organization like Winslow Technology or Haylius Consulting as a consultant partner. And on the CyberAB board site, you can find registered partner or provider organizations, RPOs. These are different than the assessor side, the auditor side of the equation, which is more formal assessment. While it's not a formal certification, you will not receive that. There's no official CMMC credential issued. I think that's really important to understand. But what we'll do is we'll work with you on the gap analysis and produce a readiness report. And in that process, we will also demonstrate recommendations for remediation. So to be completely clear, before I jump to the formal, Winslow Technology Group nor Haylius are registered partner organizations or C3PAOs. We are not certified assessors. We offer pre-assessment services to help prepare you for your formal audit and certification. So thinking about output, why is this important? It's like a scrimmage. You get to work out the plays, you get to test the team's knowledge, you get to build muscle memory through repetition. When we get into gap closures, it's about the opportunity to find a control gap, and schedule time to implement or correct, and then allow time to retest. Then finally on that front, it's about remediation. It provides a process to address issues. Some fixes are super simple, change a process, but some are much more complex and costly. Implement a new software solution. For example, you might have a password policy, but you lack an identity and access management solution that shows as the evidence for compliance and demonstrating your procedures. So it's real important to understand that our pre-assessment work is really about readiness for you to move to the right side of the screen, which is the formal assessment. This is where you achieve an actual certification. So you become certified by a C3PAO, it's a third-party assessor organization that is authorized by CyberAB, the governing body, and the Department of Defense. The purpose is really about meeting all the requirements practices. It's determining that the companies can meet and based on their specified maturity model. There's multiple layers of CMMC. So there's a requirement to look at these eligibility to handle controlled unclassified information in the contracts. Those requirements get tested as part of your assessment. So who performs it? Only authorized C3PAOs can conduct this test. They are trained and certified assessors by the CyberAB board. So the output, they provide a formal certification decision. This is submitted to CyberAB and the Department of Defense, and if successful, your CMMC certification lasts for 3 years. There is some work in the mix about reassessment or reaffirmation is what it's called. So, but that's the framework. So there's a pre-assessment that gets you prepared for the formal assessment that gets you certified. And that certification will be registered with CyberAB and the DoD. So there's a lot in this equation. We're going to dive in now to the next slide, which is really about the mindset and methodology around a pre-assessment checklist. And Brian and I are going to tag team this one, so we might bounce back and forth a little bit. But in essence, it's a framework. We do follow much of the NIST framework that Matt talked about. It's the 800-171 framework. There's a bunch of layers. So there's level 1, 2, and 3 certifications. It's NIST 800-171. But depending on which level you're going after, level 1 has 15 requirements that might look at the FAR, or the 52-204-21, sorry for all the numbers. That's a self-assessment and affirmation. Level 2 is 110 requirements against the NIST SP 800-171R2. That's where they test you on the certification. But you can go a layer higher, as Brian mentioned a few moments ago, that requires another level of certification, that's level 3. This is the NIST 800-171R2 plus the NIST SP 800-172. So it's a combination of 34 total requirements that you would have to go through. So as you look at the framework, we're here, this is a partial list, to align policies with business risk priorities. So it's looking at mapping key operational risk areas, ensuring that policies are role relevant. Because it's not just IT, it's also looking at HR, any of your operations teams, and any third-party vendors you might be using. There's components to all that. You may translate policies into measurable controls. So this is really about defining what good looks like for each policy area. And then you can create a control framework or workflow like MFA enforcement or endpoint logging. Then you could use the technology for enforcement, how it's used, I should say. It's the automation of controls via a SIM or an endpoint protection device, IAM or MDM tool. But you need to set up the alerting thresholds because they're going to be looking for, okay, you have a system, you have a policy, you have controls. How are they consumed? How are they used? How are they enforced? They got to tie back to policy violations that can demonstrate that you're paying attention. That really leads into number 4, which is building your cybersecurity daily routines. We look at control checks. How do you handle onboarding and offboarding? Are you keeping up with your patches? What are your remote work protocols? These are all areas of risk that, if not checked, if not monitored, could lead to security gaps. And so they want to look at some of the training. We will look at some of the training of non-technical staff, as well as technical staff for the day-to-day security components. And so looking at like auditing, readiness and continuous validation will help set up some of these dashboards to report these alignments with controls. We'll map some technical evidence to show that the policy sections for the auditors line up with the control base. Then we'll schedule some interviews and some reviews to look at some things from a quarterly or annual basis, so we have it on a schedule. We kind of dive into, there's some quick wins. Like if you don't have policy templates or policies at all, Winslow and Haylius can help you write some of those. We have some great template-driven stuff. We can work with you on that. We'll also walk you through the compliance framework with NIST. One of the cool things we like to do is we create some KPIs for you on your journey of CMMC in the pre-assessment stage. It's a gap closure rate number that we'll calculate. How many gaps identified, how quickly you're closing them. Control implementation readiness, like how prepared are you for the new controls that we're putting in place, if they are new. And then what's your timeline to remediate? So how are we progressing? So if you need to communicate up to executive management, to leadership, to demonstrate your progress on how you're progressing towards your CMMC gap remediation. Then from a documentation standpoint, we really do try to define the desired CMM level of certification that's required with you. We'll map out using a spreadsheet tool that we have that's kind of the practice ID, the name, the artifact, the control number, and all the details that go along with it. So there's a bunch of tabs that go with each NIST requirement. And we categorize these by document type, and we check them off as we produce the artifacts and demonstrate that will be in your documentation map for when the auditors come in for the formal CMMC certification. Then finally, we'll look at some tools and systems inventories, right? What is the purpose definition? Like, are we there to inventory the IT and cybersecurity tools and systems that do affect CUI? List of a lot of these categories include things Brian's hit on before: endpoints, servers, apps and platforms, tools, vendors. We'll give that inventory spreadsheet, and then we'll link these CMMC practices and following in this framework. We'll link it all together for you so that there's a true roadmap for you. So this assessment is part of an exercise, part of a process that we'll work through with you. And I think we will jump into now a slide that's really about the why we're here. If you're interested in learning about CMMC and how we can help on your expedition, Haylius would love to partner with you, and Winslow would like to partner with you on that. So where are you in your journey? It could be you're looking for just consultation. Don't know where I am. I have to start somewhere. Let's start with a consulting engagement. You could be ready for a pre-assessment. You've done all this work and readiness for your CMMC formal certification assessment, but you want to have a pre-run with us. Or we can have some pre-work done you have some pre-work done, and you guys need a coach. So it's pretty straightforward that we are able to partner with you in a lot of different ways. So with that said, if there's opportunity now, we'd like to go on to any questions that might surface at this point.
Awesome. Great job, guys. Very informative. We actually do have quite a few questions that came through. So first up here, I'll just try to get to them. How early should an organization begin the pre-assessment process to ensure readiness for a formal CMMC audit?
Sure. Brian, you want to take that one? Or you want me to take that one?
Yeah, I'll take that one, Russ. Thank you.
Okay.
You know, it's really never too early to consider a pre-assessment, especially if you think you have CUI or you have some data that needs protection and certification is required for a CMMC for your company. As I said earlier in the slide, one of the things you can consider if you're not going to be CMMC certified, but you want to really kind of put your controls and what you've got today against what a good framework, considering level 1, not certification, but level 1 controls, and that cyber hygiene is really a place to start.
Okay, very good. Other question that came in. This is I know we had talked about we're not an assessor, we're not like a certified auditing body. So a question here is what role do third-party consultants or assessors play in the pre-assessment work? So I think you covered this. It just might be good to clarify it again for folks to not confuse like an assessment with the pre-assessment work that we're talking about to prepare for perhaps a lengthy and long process with the audit itself.
Absolutely. It's a great question. We did hit on a lot of the points, but I think a key thing in that question, Matt, is how do you pick a reliable partner?
Yeah.
There's a lot of organizations out there that are assessors. They have a practice. They offer a lot of different services, and all off the corner of their desk, they might do, CMMC pre-assessments. At Winslow and Haylius, we have strong practices in this area. We are prepared. We have tools. We have a ton of experience in multi-industries that are dealing with the readiness requirements of CMMC. Brian and I have both personally lived in the construction space, heavy DoD work, a lot of work with prime contractors and vendors. So it's about experience. It's about having an organization that understands your industry, and it is about making sure that as you look for a partner, that you're finding someone who's willing to come in and understand your day-to-day operations, not just hand you a document and a checklist and say, do this, do this, do this. Like, we're here as a partner. Our job's to understand where your pain thresholds are and the constraints that you might have and advise on services. And the beauty of our partnership, Haylius and Winslow, if Haylius does the consulting part and it turns into some remediation work that requires infrastructure, software, technology, hardware, we are right there partnered with Winslow, who can offer a multitude of different cybersecurity services. So hopefully that answers the question.
It does. And thank you for that, because we do have a fair amount of different services to help folks achieve compliance. All right, I think we have time for one more question here. This is about smaller organizations. So how can smaller organizations with limited resources approach a pre-assessment without breaking the bank? This is like a value-oriented question, I think here. Good question.
Yeah, Matt, I think that's a very interesting question. And one thing to know is, like, breaking the bank, it could be dollars, could be time, could be resources dedicated internally. All those things are way on smaller organizations. So in that model, you probably want to look at it and break it down into chunks, right? Important chunks, places where maybe the risk is the greatest to that organization, and really help them hyper focus on those spaces. And then, build that risk register, build out that plan. And the plan can be run at any point in time throughout the journey, the expedition, as Russ mentioned. So focus on those really important pieces for that organization and build on success.
Okay. Great. Now, do you all find that by doing a pre-assessment and preparing for the full assessment is, it would seem to me anyway that that's a valuable way of spending resources, so that when kind of like the real auditing firm, the real certified auditor is on, you may be able to limit time or cut that short a bit. Do you find that at all? It just seems like this is like a really great, valuable use of time to organize everyone, get everyone on the same page, and prepare for the overall assessment in terms of this pre-assessment.
Yeah, Matt, it's a great question. The challenge with that question, however, is CMMC is so new, and there haven't been a lot of organizations that are already through the entire process.
Got it.
Most organizations are still struggling with, do I need a CMMC certification? And what level would I need to achieve to maintain the operations of my business?
Okay.
But the concept of what you just described is very accurate, and our vision for how we believe the pre-assessments will work is it's that readiness exercise. It's like I said with the, it's like a scrimmage. So I think if you go through the scrimmage model, I think it's going to save people time, money, and it's kind of like going for your driver's license too. If you don't pass the first time, you got to take again. You got to log some hours. This kind of hopefully shortens that schedule for you. You don't have a retake.
Okay, good, great. We're kind of out of time here, unfortunately. So we'll any other questions that we have in the chat, we'll absolutely follow up with folks afterwards. Russ, Brian, any final thoughts before we close for the morning?
Yeah. So for me, I'm honored to be here. As I said at the beginning, we've got such a wonderful partnership with Winslow. For you as potential clients, please understand that Haylius is a boutique organization. We do offer a lot of different services, but this was really a myopic focus today on the CMMC readiness assessment. If you're interested, you can find our contact information here and hit our website. We do offer some additional stuff as well, consulting service-wise. But thank you for this wonderful time together on this webinar, and thank you, Winslow Technology Group, for doing such a great job in hosting us and our partnership as well.
You got it. Russ and Brian, thank you very much for the time this morning. This was very informative. I certainly think people will get value out of it. I and even the Winslow team certainly did learned a bit here. Again, we just want to thank everyone for attending the webinar. There were a couple other questions in the chat, so we'll follow up with folks afterwards. Hope you all have a great morning, great rest of the day, and we will catch you next time. Thanks all.